Okay, good morning everyone. We are continuing here. Try that again. We are continuing over here in the TEHILLIM Chaf test number 29. We began last week in the first few psukim, and we left off with the following question, which hopefully today Bez Hashem will begin to answer. And Rashi points out to us in his opening lines of the commentary over here that the Yesh b'mizmor zeh shmeine esrei askaros. There's 18 times in this particular Tehillim that it mentions Hashem's name. And he writes, U'kenegdom tiknu yudches brachos. And in relation and correspondence to the 18 times that it mentions Hashem's name in this particular Tehillim, therefore the Chachamim, the sages, they instituted the Yudches Brachos, the 18 blessings of the Shemona Esrei. And so we left with the question is, what is so unique about this particular Tehillim? As we pointed out, there's many other Tehillim, there are many other psukim, many other parshas that we have in Torah and Tanakh, where certainly we could have counted up 18 times that it says Hashem's name. But something that is intrinsically unique apparently about this particular Tehillim, which makes it that Chazal saw fit that from here we will derive the 18 blessings of the Shemona Esrei. And so we will try Be'ez Hashem as we go through here to answer. We're holding here in pasuk number 4, in verse 4, and it says the following: Kol Hashem ba'koyach, the voice of Hashem is with koyach, with force. Kol Hashem b'hadar, the voice of Hashem is b'hadar, in all beautiful things. So Rav Hirsch writes over here a very beautiful idea. We know that the word koyach not only means strength, but the word koyach also means the potential. It means the potential that is in something, as the Ramban teaches us in the Chumash, that whenever a person goes through a nisayon, they go through a struggle or a challenge in life, the reason that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is bringing that to the person is because he wants to be meitzi koyach, he wants to bring the potential out, he wants to bring it out lepayel, to make it into a reality. So any time that a person has potential inside, it's latent potential, it's not being used, until someone maximizes that or he begins to utilize it, so then the potential just sits there dormant. One of my sons, about a year ago, decided that he wants to pick up the guitar. So we got a guitar and a teacher, and he went from a boy who doesn't know a single chord, he doesn't know how to strum, nothing. And last night by Havdalah he was playing as if he's I won't say world-class guitarist, but certainly someone that you would never believe that he's only been playing for 1 year. What does that mean? That means that the potential to play the guitar was always inside of him. Whether you'll say he has an ear for music, his hands are shaped in the right way, he has a gefil, he has a feeling for the way that it should be played, and he has an interest. So therefore the guitar teacher took the koyach, the potential, and he shaped it and he formed it into making it reality that this boy can play guitar. Says Rav Hirsch over here, Kol Hashem ba'koyach, the voice of Hashem is ba'koyach, the voice of Hashem is with force, but it doesn't just mean force. It means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's blasting voice, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's words of Torah and his words of encouragement, his words of chizuk, of inspiration, those words are coming straight at you to allow you to develop your koyach, your potential, your moral potential, your ruchnius potential, your that all of your talents, all your faculties, everything, as it says, behadar, will be the things that make you beautiful. What is the beauty of a person? The beauty of a person is not their clothing. The beauty of a person is not a good hairdo. The beauty of a person is not how cut and sculpted their body is. That's not the beauty of a person. The true hadar, the true beauty of a person is when they are utilizing the koychais, when they're utilizing their potential and their talents and their abilities, and they are elevating their midas, their traits, their character traits, and they are becoming somebody that is so noble and so beautiful in their nature that they radiate, the inner beauty comes radiating on the outside as well. The beauty which is in the eye of the beholder, the eye of the beholder really is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if we want to prove to Hashem that we are beautiful in who we are, so that means that we have to dig inside of ourselves, bring out the potential in so many areas of our life that unfortunately are a bit dormant at this point, in our ruchni, in our spiritual self, in our talents, in our abilities, in our who we are as a person, the nature that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us. When a person begins to develop all of that, that ultimately is the true beauty. As we mentioned, I think probably many times over the years in the shiurim for the women, we find an Eishes Chayil. Eishes Chayil goes through a whole beautiful array of all the different traits and the abilities of a woman. But at the end it says, Isha Yiras Hashem Hitzis Alel. The woman who fears HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is the one that is Tis'alel, that is the woman who is truly praiseworthy. And I once went to a Shiva house, and the woman who passed away was an elderly woman. So what do they have in the Shiva house? They show pictures of her from when she was in the 1920s or 1930s, when she was a young, spry lady with bouncing around the world with all of her energy intact. And that, they say, is the beauty of who this woman is. But Shlomo HaMelech and Dovid HaMelech is saying over here, that's not beauty. The real beauty is, what do you do over your lifetime with all of the koiches, all of the potential, and all of the abilities and all of the talents that you have? Do you use them? Do you bring them out into this world? Do you elevate them? Do you make them into something that is better than just letting them go on the way that they are naturally? If you do that, then you are the Hisis Alil, you're the woman who deserves the badge of honor. You deserve all the praise, all the glory, you deserve it all. But if a person goes through life and they never utilize what is inside of them, chaval, what a waste of a life that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given to us. And what is going to bring out the kayach? What is going to be able to bring out the potential that is there? Koil Hashem, the voice of Hashem, which we mentioned last week, the voice that speaks to us through His Torah, the voice that speaks to us through His mitzvahs, the voice that speaks to us through the historical events which are taking place around us. We just have to know how to listen, how to hear, how to understand in the right way. When you hear the voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then you will be zeiche to allow it to connect and attach to yourself on the inside, and then you will grow and you will blossom and you will flourish as well, and you will become this person that HaKadosh Baruch Hu desires for you to become. Kol Hashem shoyve arazim v'yeshaber Hashem es arze levanoin. So 5, 6, and 7 these are verses that go together over here, and I'm skipping it out to verse number 8. Kol Hashem yochil midbar. The voice of Hashem allows for the midbar, for the wilderness, to yochil, to tremble, but to move around. Yochil Hashem midbar kadesh. HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes the midbar kadesh, the wilderness of kadesh, and He sends it into travail. It has its travels, as we will see. Rav Hirsch writes over here a very important lesson, and something that we need to carry along with us through our lives as well. And he says over the following: Kadesh was one of the sojourns that the Jewish people had in the Midbar, in the wilderness, when they were there for 40 years in the Midbar. At what point in their history over there in the wilderness did the Jewish people come to a place called Kadesh? When did they get there? So Rav Hirsch points out, you know where Kadesh is? Kadesh is the place in which the Meraglim, the spies, embarked from the wilderness, from the desert, and went into the land of Eretz Yisrael. And when they came back with their evil reports, which ended up bringing about a destruction to Klal Yisrael, they did it over there in Kadesh, in that place itself. Says Rav Hirsch the following idea, that from this one place, which was 2 years into their travels around the Midbar, the wilderness, when had they, from where that vantage point was, they could see directly into Eretz Yisrael, and they knew it's just around the corner they're supposed to walk inside. From that one place, the unfortunate mishap that happened to the Jewish people was that it destroyed their nation, and it brought them into a 38-year period which made them travel around and wander around the wilderness in order to expunge them, so to speak, and cleanse them from the sinners who ended up bringing about mass hysteria and concern and anxiety and worry to the Jewish people. So says Rav Hirsch, and he recounts based on the psukim, based on the verses in the Chumash, the following idea. And that is that Kadesh itself is the place where Klal Yisrael sinned. They could have embarked from there and gone straight into Eretz Yisrael. They made a very big mistake. They went in, they spied it out. They weren't supposed to be spies. They came back to Eretz Yisrael. Instead of saying all the nice things and the good things they saw about the land, they ended up saying over Lashon Hara Deraisa about Eretz Yisrael, and they scared Klal Yisrael to ever going inside of there. So what was the punishment? Hashem said, this generation, these people that are there right now, the 20 to 60-year-old people that are there, they cannot go into Eretz Yisrael. So I'm going to now have to bring them a difficult 38 years, 40 years in the wilderness, where they're going to have to travel back and forth until they're all going to end up dying out, until the new generation is going to come in. Where did they stay for the first 19 years after the decree was made that they are not going to be able to go into Eretz Yisrael? So he writes that the first 19 years of their journeys in Eretz Yisrael was not, in the wilderness, was not journeying anywhere. Rather, they stayed right there in the place where they sinned. Every day they had to wake up and they had to look and say, oy vey, what did we do to ourselves? And they would look out from the watchtowers and they would look across the Yarden River, the Jordan River, and they would see, there's the land of Eretz Yisrael that HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised us. Eretz Toivi, it's a good land. We had no reason to send out spies. And we took from the elite of our nation, they spied out the land and they made a terrible mistake. And we are now condemned to die in the midbar, in the wilderness. Every day they would walk around their encampment over there and they could not travel any place because HaKadosh Baruch Hu was the one that would decree when to move and when to stop, and his gezerah was, you're stopped where you are. So every day they had to relive the mistakes that they had made when they sent out the spies into Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, this became a place where the parents of the newer generation, the younger generation, they had to own up for their mistakes. They had to recognize that they failed in the eyes of Hashem. They had to come to grips with the fact that the gezerah, the decree was, they are not themselves going to go into Eretz Yisrael. And they had to begin to raise the new generation that was not included in that decree. And they had to give them the moral training and the maturation process that was necessary for the next generation to be able to achieve the destiny that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had for them. And that destiny was that Klal Yisrael doesn't belong in the wilderness. Klal Yisrael doesn't belong in the gullus, in the exile. Klal Yisrael belongs in Eretz Yisrael. When are you going to go in there? When you could be makabel, when you could accept emphatically upon yourselves that I know that I have nothing at all to worry about because Hashem himself is the one that is sending me into that land, then you will go in there seamlessly. You go in there smoothly. You go in there without any adverse effects or reactions. Yeah, you'll have to fight the nations that are there. You'll have to overcome them, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is on your side. So you have nothing to worry about. And therefore, says Rav Hirsch, the Jewish people were trapped in Kadesh for 19 years. 19 years of facing the music every single day, recognizing the mistakes that they made, repenting and offering their apologies to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and at the same time, they were responsible to make sure that their children, the next generation, that was either already born or was being born during that time would not make the terrible errors that they, the parents, had made themselves. And therefore, Kol Hashem Yachil Midbar, the voice of Hashem is ringing out over there in the Midbar, and Yachil Hashem Midbar Kadesh. And this voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is what is pushing the people in Kadesh over there as well. And he writes the following, and this is really a lesson that we take with us into all of the years of exile that Klal Yisrael will find itself in. And that means the following. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu make such a long, arduous exile? Already we have to look back on ourselves and see that it's 2,000 years since we've been sent out of our land of Eretz Yisrael. 2,000 years since the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. 2,000 years that we've been wandering around to the Arba Kanfos Haaretz, the four corners of the land. 2,000 years of assimilation, of anti-Semitism. 2,000 years of pogroms, of Holocaust. 2,000 years of suffering under the rule of the nations that we are a part of. Why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu say, if He loves us so much, and He cares about it, He's the Ava Rachaman, He's the Father of mercy, He desires us to be close to Him, why do we have to travel in the world of Gullus, in the world of exile? And therefore, Rav Hirsch writes, our exile is a parallel to the Jewish people that were condemned to travel the land of the wilderness of the desert over there as a result of the mistakes that they made with the Meraglim. They were supposed to go into Eretz Yisrael and everything was supposed to be smooth. However, they failed in understanding and recognizing what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted from them. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu then had to cleanse them of all the impurities. He had to get rid of all the people that were doing the wrong thing, and He had to prepare a better generation, a stronger nation that was one with the Ribono Shel Olam, that was be'emunah and bitachon, with faith and with trust in Hashem that it's all going to work out. And then at the right time, the mantle was passed over to Yoshua as the new leader, and he was the one that led the remaining Jews into Eretz Yisrael. So too, the Gullus, the exile that Klal Yisrael will go through in our lives, which has spanned continents and has spanned generations and has spanned many, many nations that are rising up against us, all of it is for one reason. It is to cleanse out from within us the imperfections and the impurities of our nation, so that when the time will come, and at this point it's when Mashiach will come, and He will usher in a new era for Klal Yisrael, that we are going to go into Eretz Yisrael, those that have been, I guess we'll call it spiritually cleansed of all of the negativity and the impurities and the profane of our nation, those that will be left at that time, we will be the ones that will be able to confidently walk in with Mashiach Tzidkenu into Eretz Yisrael. So we look at Gullus, perhaps maybe not being the punishment that we find it to be so often, but rather we look at it as being the reality that we have to go through in order to make sure that we are prepared and we are purified and we are ready to go into the land of Eretz Yisrael when that time will come in our lives. We hope, of course, every single day, we hope every single day that today is going to be the day. But whatever we will go through in the Gullus, in the exile, we have to remind ourselves it's all part of Hashem's plan. It's all part of the cleansing of the nation to make sure that we're worthy of the holiest moments in history when Mashiach is going to come and He's going to bring us into the land that we've been hoping for and praying for all of these years. And therefore, our Gullus, our exile, is a response just like the years of wandering in the wilderness was a response to the acts of the Jewish people at that time as well. And then he points out over here the following. The word Yachil, which really comes from the word Chil or Chayil, which he says is like giving birth. How is the wilderness over here giving birth? If you look in a midbar, if you look in a wilderness, it's the exact opposite of a place that can give birth. It's a place of deprivation. It's a place of isolation. There's no water, there's no vegetation, there's no life. There's danger because there are wild animals and bandits that are all around. It's not a place that you would imagine a woman is going to go into labor. She doesn't decide to run off into the wilderness over there. That's about the last place that she wants to be in. She either wants to be in a hospital where she knows they're well equipped to deal with labor. She wants to go to one of these birthing centers where the midwives are going to take good care of her and she's going to be treated like a queen who's giving birth to a new life in this world. But she's not going to go to a wilderness. If you want to raise a family, you don't think about running off into the wilderness where there's nothing. That's a place that is totally deprived of necessities, of amenities, of life. So why is it over here then that it's specifically in the wilderness that we're saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is renewing and restoring and bringing life to Klal Yisrael? Because the point is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to say this in the right way over here, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, it doesn't matter where it is that a Jew will find himself to be. It doesn't matter if a Jew is in the bastion of Ruchnius, or if a Jew is going to be in the desolation of the Midbar. It doesn't matter if he's surrounded by hundreds and thousands of Yidden that are all marching to the voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or he finds himself alone somewhere in some country where there's just him trying to serve Hashem. It doesn't matter, because the voice of the Ribbono Shel Olam is the laboring that it brings to a Jew, that no matter where they are in this world, no matter where they are in their life, if they'll be attuned to it and they'll listen, this is what we were speaking about last week as well, and they will hear the voice speaking through Hashem's Torah. They will hear the voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaking through His wisdom, through the events of the world around us. Then a person will understand that no matter where they are in this world, they're always going to be connected, and they're always going to be linked in to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be the instrument of life-giving process in this person's life. So this is a great hope for Klal Yisrael as we continue to travel through the Golus, through the exile of all of these years. A person begins to realize, it could be, I'm not in Yerushalayim HaKodesh. I may not be in the bustling world of Torah of Lakewood. I might not be in the holy cities of Tzfas or Bnei Brak or anywhere else in the Holy Land, where it is a world that is filled with yeshivas and filled with shuls and filled with people that are serving Hashem. It's true that I might not be there. I might be in Los Angeles, California. I might be in a small town someplace on the East Coast. All of that is true. But you know what the pasuk over here is telling us? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because the voice of the Ribbono Shel Olam is not limited to only the holy city of Jerusalem. The voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not limited to the study halls of Bnei Brak. The voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not limited to the streets of Lakewood, New Jersey, or of Monsey, New York, or of Borough Park, where there's beautiful Hasidim walking through the streets everywhere that you look. You can't say that. There's no limitations in the Ribbono Shel Olam, even in the Midbar, even in the desolate areas of the world, even in the empty moments of a person's life, where they don't see life force, and they don't see the water, and they don't see the people, and they don't see things thriving and growing. Don't forget, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is right there. And if a person just attunes their ear, and they learn how to listen in the proper way, and they hear the voice of the Ribbono Shel Olam, His call, and they heed His call, and they follow in suit with the direction that He's trying to bring us in, then it doesn't matter, in theory it doesn't matter whether a person is sitting in the Beis HaMikdash or a person is sitting in a cafe in Tarzana, California, having a deep and meaningful conversation with another Jew who is seeking and searching his identity as a Jew. It doesn't matter. And this, as we said previously in Tehillim, like it says that Dovid says, Acha shoalti meis Hashem oisa vakesh shifti beveis Hashem kol yemei chayai. And we asked over there, did Dovid HaMelech say that he wants to sit inside the Beis HaMikdash all the days of his life? He's going to sit inside the study house all the days, constantly, every single day of his life, not do anything? He was a king. He was running an army. He was running a kingdom. He had shilas that he was dealing with day and night of people coming and asking him halachic questions because he was the greatest sage of the generation. Did he have the schus, the merit to sit inside the Beis HaMikdash all day long and study? No. And we pointed out over there, also in the name of Hirsch, that Dovid HaMelech was saying, wherever I go in my life, wherever I will travel, whatever I will be doing, I want it to be that I'm so connected to you, that it is like I am sitting beveis Hashem, I'm sitting in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. I could be in the Beis Midrash, in the yeshiva study hall, I could be in the shul, I could be davening, I could be walking down Ventura Boulevard on Shabbos morning, and my thoughts could be elsewhere, not on the boulevard, but rather on spiritual thoughts of meaning and of consequence. And therefore, wherever I am in this world, I'm shifty beveis Hashem, I'm sitting and I'm dwelling in the house of the Lord. And this is the same idea that we are saying over here as well, which is, no matter where you are in life, just listen and you'll hear the Koil Hashem, the voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's calling you. He's begging you. He's reeling you in that we should listen to what he's saying and we should live our lives accordingly. And when a person does that, then they know that wherever they are, there's no such thing as desolation. On the other hand, when a person is tapped in, when they're linked in, when they're connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the life becomes a life of true exaltation, of true elevation, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring the travels, and he will bring his voice, and he will bring his energy wherever it is that we might find ourselves. Kol Hashem yechaylel ayolos, the voice of Hashem allows the ayolos, the young deer, it allows them to give birth. The voice of Hashem allows the young deer to give birth. Vayechesayv ya'arais uvechalei kula omer kavod. And even while the voice of Hashem can be sometimes so penetrating and so strong and so powerful that it will destroy forests, nevertheless, the temple, which we will call Heichalah, his sanctuary, it calls out the glory of Hashem. Says Rav Hirsch, what does this mean over here? Sometimes just look at the world today. Look at all the devastation in the physical world. Look at the hurricanes, look at the tornadoes, look at the heat waves, look at everything that's going on over here. All of that is the powerful coil, the powerful voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu coming and wreaking havoc in the physical world. You can look at all of that. And sometimes what does it do? It defeats a person. It brings a person down. A person goes through difficult times as a result. It's not even enjoyable, not even a pleasure. Nevertheless, if a person realizes what is going on during that time, through the destruction and through the devastation and through the overpowering and overwhelming voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that wreaks havoc on this world, at that moment itself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is bringing new life into this world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is bringing the young deer. The voice of Hashem brings forth the calf. It brings forth the baby. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's voice is bringing forth the glory of his heichal, of his sanctuary, of his temple over there. And the whole thing is saying glory, which means a fascinating idea. And that is, and this, it's similar to what we said before, that even though that we see things being destroyed around us, don't think that everything is for naught. Because it's specifically in those moments of the person's life. It's specifically in those times of the history of Klal Yisrael. And we pointed this out before. There never has been a destruction since before the Holocaust and after the Holocaust that we can remember. Maybe it was not as bad since the time of the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. And yet, what was the result afterwards? Yes, we're not denying the fact that it was horrible and horrific and it was Gehenna on earth. And we are not denying the fact that 6 million of our precious Yidden, pure, holy Jews, martyrs for the sake of being a Jew, were lost from this world. We're not taking that away. But we want to know, if we want to understand the tenacity and the strength of the Jewish spirit and our long, illustrious heritage, we look at what took place after the war was over. And now, 80 years later, let's examine Klal Yisrael. Where are we holding? So in the camps of Torah, in the world of Yiddishkeit of the Jewish people, there have never been more schools, never been more yeshivas, never been more seminaries, never been more kollels, never been more learning, never been more kosher food even in the stores. There has never been the opportunity so much in the world like there is today for a Jew to live a life of authentic Yiddishkeit. Never. Maybe since the times of Bavel of Babylonia, after the destruction of the first temple, when there was a renaissance of Yiddishkeit which took place in Bavel for 70 years. Never has there been so much Torah, so much building, so much growth, so much expansion. How does that work? How does that happen? You kill 6 million of our Jews, all of European Jewry is basically wiped out within the period of several years. The Jewish people are now traveling throughout the world as human skeletons with the loss of families and the loss of life. And who can imagine the traumas that were going on inside of them? How is that nation going to rebuild itself and become the most powerful Torah nation of all time? Says the Torah, from the desolation, from the destruction, from the hardships of Klal Yisrael, there is going to grow our might and our strength. Because, as we pointed out, Kol Hashem B'Koyach, this powerful, unrelenting voice of Hashem, is what helps to bring out the potential that is there inside of us. That brings out the koyach, the power inside of each and every Jew, that pintel yid, that spark of the Jew. That understanding that we are a cog in the wheel of the history of the Jewish people, and we must continue to go forward. That is where a Jew will find his greatest koyches, his greatest abilities. Sometimes when we are living in the renaissance of Torah, or the renaissance of Ruchnius, or the greatest areas of Ruchnius, we begin to lose sight that we also have obligations and responsibilities. Nobody else is going to toe the line for us. However, when we are living in the place of desolation, when you're out there in the forest all by yourself, my son was in camp, in sleepaway camp over the summer in New York, and they went on a hike. The camp went on a hike, a very long hike, and there was no cell phone reception in this area in the forest where they were. And at a certain point, there were several groups of boys that were traveling. One of the smaller groups ended up getting lost from the main group. And as they come out at the clearing of the forest over there, and they start taking a head count to see everybody there, they realize that they're missing a few people. Shortly after that, a small section of that group ended up coming through, but they realized that there were 2 boys from the entire camp that were still lost in the forest. And they had no idea where they were. No phone, you can't call them, you can't talk, nothing. And there was a stream, a very kind of a rough stream of water that everybody had to pass through in order to get from one side to the other. And without the appearance of these boys, their minds began thinking, God forbid, the worst. What if they got towed down in this stream? Who knows where they might be, if they're even still alive. When they finally got out of the clearing and they got back to the place where there was reception once again, they called immediately Hatzalah and the police department and the paramedics of that area. And literally within minutes, maybe a half an hour or so, all of Hatzalah from the Catskill Mountains and the police department and the fire department, they all converged in this one area. And they said, we're going to do whatever we can to try to find these boys to make sure that they are safe. My son said it was now already the afternoon, and there were literally like 100 people between Hatzalah and the police and the fire department that went on their mission looking for them. There's helicopters overhead looking, there's boats going up and down the river if they could get to the river to try and find everything. The people going through the forest. It was an amazing, amazing thing. He said, just to see the achdus, the unity that's going on over here. 2 kids, nobody even knows who they are, but they're looking for them to save their lives. Hours went on, they had no idea where they were. No idea where they were. The rest of the boys went back to the camp, and he said at about midnight, the heads of the camp came in, and they said, okay, we're saying TEHILLIM, they have not yet found these boys, we don't know where they are, we have to daven and we have to pray for the best. And my son said it was such heartfelt TEHILLIM over there, 1 o'clock in the morning, they had no idea where the boys were. And finally about maybe 2 a.m., the boys are located, 2 boys that were missing. They're located sitting on a gigantic rock in the middle of this stream, and they are able to see that they're there. The helicopter, whatever, saw them, and they see that they're alive, and Baruch Hashem, they are safe and they are sound. But they couldn't just send boats down there, they couldn't just send the helicopter with a long ladder to pick them up. It took another 5 hours for Hatzalah and the paramedics and the police department to be able to forge a way down through the forest in the middle of the night to get to these boys. And finally, Baruch Hashem, they were able to take them and save them. And they were shocked to see that the boys were totally calm. They were not nervous, they were not anxious, they were not agitated. These young yeshiva bachim, maybe 18, 19 years old, they were relaxed. And when they were questioned as to the fact that after being lost on a rock, away from their camp, not knowing what their fate and their future is going to hold, that they should be so relaxed, what is the pshat? What is going on over here? So they told over the following. When we realized that we were lost, we saw there's nothing that we can do because we have no way to get in touch and we don't know which is the way back, and we don't want to take any more chances of getting lost. And they found themselves in the stream, these 2 boys, and it's moving pretty quickly. And they realized that it's either swim or sink right now. What are they going to do? And they saw this gigantic boulder in the middle of the river over there, and they pushed their way over to the boulder and they climbed up on the boulder. And once they were on top of this gigantic rock, they realized, we're safe. We're safe. We don't know where our friends are. We don't know where the camp is. We don't have really any food with us. We're nothing. But we're safe. We didn't drown in the river. And we didn't get lost in the middle of the night in the forest. Maybe there's wild animals. Who knows? So they said to themselves the following: we're safe. We don't know where everybody else is. But we know that there's a Rebbeinu Shalom who runs the world. And if HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us to the rock, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring us to salvation as well. And they said there's Hatzalah here, there's fire departments here, there's police departments here. Certainly they realize that we're not around. We trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu that the shluchim, that the messengers that are supposed to save us, they're going to come and find us. So what did they do for all those hours? So listen what these yeshiva bachrim stuck on a rock, not knowing where the salvation is going to come from. Look what they did. It's time for mincha, they daven mincha. They sang, they had a kumzitz. They had a kumzitz, the 2 of them on the rock. They sang songs of amun and bitachon to show that their trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything's going to work out. They slept a little bit while they were on the rock. Maybe they had some snacks that they ate a little bit. They davened Mariv together. They lived like a yid on a rock in the middle of the raging river over there, not knowing where the salvation is going to come from. But they know, mi'ayin yavo ezri, me'im Hashem, it comes from Hashem. And sure enough, as the hours went on, they were located, and they realized that they were located, and it took, like I said, another 4 or 5 hours before they were able to actually get to them and then bring them back, and they were fine. They were unscathed. They didn't get hurt. They didn't get injured. Nothing. On the other hand, they emerged from that experience with a tremendous connection in their emunah and their bitachon and their tremendous trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what we're saying over here. You think that the desolation is bad? You think that the destruction is here to destroy us? You think that the hardships that Klal Yisrael is going to go through so many years in our life is going to be overwhelming and we're not going to be able to come out alive? Adarabah, just the opposite, says Dovid HaMelech over here. And that is that while HaKadosh Baruch Hu's voice is blasting, and while it is that there are things that are going on around us that are confounding and hard to understand, specifically in that area of a person's life, that's where you're going to find the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's where you're going to realize that you could be a yeshiva bacher on a rock in the middle of nowhere, not knowing when they're going to find you, and you're singing beautiful songs, you and your friend, be'emunah shalema, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one who's running the world, and He got us to the rock, He's going to get us out of here as well. And then 18, 19 years old, you walk away, you have a whole new concept, a whole new understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's what we're saying over here. Where do you end up? You end up in the sanctuary of Hashem. And it doesn't only mean in the Beis HaMikdash itself. Yeah, that would be the ultimate place. But as we said from Dovid earlier, and that is that I'm shifting Beis Hashem kol yimei chayai, because of my life that I live connected to the Rebbeinu Shalom, wherever I am. I'm sitting in His Heichalai, I'm sitting in His sanctuary, and therefore I'm able to bask in the glory of the Shekhinah itself. Further says the pasuk over here, Hashem l'mabul yashav vayeshev Hashem melech la'olam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu remained calm on His throne, even while the flood, the mabul, was going around Him. Why? Because vayeshev Hashem melech la'olam, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu has made Himself a king forever. What is the mabul? What is the flood that we are referring to over here? And Rav Hirsch says, what mabul do we know? We know one. We know the mabul, we know the flood that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought to the world in the times of Noach. And he says, what did Hashem have to do? Hashem created a world. Imagine you're the Rebbeinu Shalom. You create a world that's called Toiv Ma'od. It's perfect. There's nothing lacking, there's nothing missing. You made everything exactly the way it's supposed to be. And you did it all for the benefit of mankind. That they should experience the hatava, the goodness of the Rebbeinu Shalom. They should see it, they should experience it, they should live it, and they should share that goodness with everybody else. And then you watch from the beginning of time, Adam Arishon ends up eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and he brings the Ra, the Yetzer Hara inside of him. And then you watch a Cain and a Hevel, brotherly not love, but brotherly destruction over there. One kills the other, it's a horrible thing. And then you watch the world go on, they become thieves, and they become crooks, and they cause pain to other people, and there's licentious, all different things, until HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, oy vey, what's going on over here? And he says that I know that the Yetzer Leiv Ha'adam is rak kol hayoim, the nature of the person that is only bad all day long. And he says, I'm going to destroy the world right now. I'm going to destroy it. And he brings a mabul, except for Noach. Noach is the one that he allows to live and stay in this world. Why? Because Noach ish tzaddik, hay tamim haysa b'dayrosav. Noach was the tzaddik who was pure in his generation. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even though that he had to destroy the world because of the disobedience of the people at that time, unfortunately, he had to say goodbye to the mass population that was in the world, and the animals, and the nature, and everything. But since that he sits on his throne, Vayeshev Hashem Melech La'olam, he sits on the throne forever. La'olam is eternal. That means that the goal and the plan that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has in this world, it does not change, it does not alter. He still wants the world to move in a certain direction. He wants mankind to raise themselves up and elevate themselves. He wants that the human race should become people that will be able to recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu and live their lives accordingly. He wants us to live according to the ultimate and original plan of His creation. He destroyed it, but He didn't change what He wants to be. It's not like, let's go back to the drawing board. You know, you have creators, you have inventors. I believe that they say over from Thomas Edison, if I'm not mistaken, or Bell, one of them. He says the only way to succeed is to make mistakes. Because if you're not willing to make mistakes, you'll never succeed. And I think it took him like 900 tries to get the light bulb right. 900 times to get the light bulb right. Imagine on 899 he said, you know what, enough of this, I'll never get there. He never would have made a light bulb. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not have to try and say, oh, it didn't work out. Let me try again. No, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is infinitely great. And He is the ultimate of perfection. And when He created the world from day number one, it was perfect. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu has perfection. Man destroys the perfection of the world. Man makes many mistakes. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I have no choice, I have to destroy you. But I didn't change my plan. I'm not going to alter things around. I'm not going to say, well, okay, let's just try to do things like this. No, you will come to the next generation. Noach is the one tzaddik in the world. He's going to be responsible to make sure that he teaches the world what's the right path and the right way. And so too, he brings it back to the original verse that we had today. And that is, that just like when Klal Yisrael went from Kadesh, and they went spying out the land of Eretz Yisrael, and they made a big mistake, and they were not zeicha, they were not able to go to the land of Eretz Yisrael at that point, because now they had to go through all of the suffering of the 40 years of travels. Hashem also didn't change His plans at that point and say, okay, we'll try something new for the Jewish people. No. You do something wrong, there's retribution. You do something wrong, we have to deal with it. We have to cleanse you. But the ultimate plan and purpose of the Jewish people is they should leave Mitzrayim, come to Har Sinai, receive the Torah, and then carry that with them into Eretz Yisrael. We're going to get there. It might take 40 years to get there, but we're going to get there. And so too, we're in Gullus, we're in exile. What's the goal of Gullus? The goal of the Gullus of the exile is, like we've said many times, Gullus is the language of Hisgalus, to reveal. The purpose of Gullus is to reveal all the koichos, all the potential that's inside of us. What's the goal? Ultimately, the goal is Mashiach. It takes time to get there. It's a long journey. It's a long trail. But every single day that a person goes through it, there's desolation, there's hardships, difficulties, all the things involved. That's not the point. The point is, in the darkness of the night, in the desolate areas of the jungle, in the rock, in the middle of the river, where you don't know where your salvation will come from, you'll find the Ribono Shel Olam. And when you find HaKadosh Baruch in those times, says Rav Hirsch over here, and that's what Dovid HaMelech is pointing out, that we are an invincible nation, that with all the ups and downs and the travails and the success and everything in between, Klal Yisrael continues to go. And what are we supposed to go on? When you hear the voice of Hashem, and you follow carefully what He's telling us to do, that is how a person is going to reach the spiritual success that we are trying to accomplish and to achieve. And therefore he writes, and I'm going to conclude with this, the final verse over here in this Tehillim. Hashem oiz la'ama yitain. Hashem He's oiz. You should give strength to your nation. Hashem yivarech es amoy v'shalom. Hashem, you should bless the people with peace. Now, what does this mean over here? And this oiz, this strength that we were referring to, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu uproots. He gets rid of the wicked. He gets rid of all the blemishes. He gets rid of all the things that are there in our way. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He's giving strength to each and every one of us, that we should have the tenacity, and that we should have the courage, and we should have the inner strength to steer clear of the pitfalls in this world and go according to the directives of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That oiz also is a reference, Chazal tell us, to Torah. The real strength of Klal Yisrael comes from the Torah itself. And when a person does that, when they look like that and they see like that, so they are infused, they are imbued with a strength. They have no idea where it even came from. You know where it comes from? It comes from the Ribono Shel Olam. I was watching on Tisha B'Av, I was watching a documentary of a Holocaust survivor who survived 17 different camps, something of that nature, death camps and labor camps where it was basically living death, all the things, lice and malnourishment and sicknesses and all the different things that he went through. And he said, how was he zeicher to live? How was he able to survive such an experience? It defies imagination. And he says, because through the thick and the thin of everything that he went through, he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu blessed him with a certain level of emunah, where he always was able to feel connected and linked into the Ribbono Shel Olam. And therefore, no matter how much Gehenna he was going through, suffering, pain, beaten to a pulp, left to die, bloody, beat up, everything you can imagine, working 14 hours a day, schlepping stones up the most cruel place you can imagine, to walk up a steep hill like this. He said it doesn't even make sense that he would be alive. But every day, there was always a hope that he had, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to save him, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to end this war, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give him the strength to continue going, to forge forward and forward. And that's really what we're saying over here, that when a person recognizes that the strength that he has is coming from Hashem, and they'll begin to see that in all of the areas of life, we're never alone, we're never abandoned, we're never weak. There's no such thing as a weakling in Klal Yisrael. There's no such thing as a person that doesn't have the strength and the fortitude to overcome what they need to. It's desolate, it's empty, you feel that you're all by yourself and you're all alone. You're never alone. Once that you have the Ribbono Shel Olam in your life, you're never alone. We have to have him in. We have to invite him in. We have to make him part of our lives. We have to become part of his world as well. When a person does that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives the strength. And then what is the ultimate? We get the greatest bracha of all. And that is that Hashem, He blesses His nation with shalom. He blesses His nation with peace. And therefore Rav Hirsch concludes over here, whoever is willing to submit themselves to the Ratzon Hashem, to the will of God, that is the one alone who is going to receive the true blessing from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what is that? That is shalom, that is peace. They will have shalom, they will have peace in their desires, they will have peace in their achievements, and they will be at peace with everything that is around them. A person of shalom, a person of peace, is a person of shleimus, of completion, of perfection. They can be in any situation that there is under the sun, and they will be at ease, and they will be relaxed, and they will have what we call menuchas hanefesh, tranquility. Like the story of these young boys, 18, 19 years old. Imagine what you would be thinking to yourself if you realized that you're lost alone in a forest and you survived and you made it onto a boulder, but you don't know how long it's going to take to get rest. You have no idea if, when, how. And you're singing a kumzitz, you're singing songs, you're davening to the Ribbono Shel Olam, you're mincha, you're saying TEHILLIM, you're davening Mariv, you sleep on each other's shoulders to get some rest over there, not in fear and panic, you're tired, you get some rest. That, says Dovid HaMelech, is the ultimate bracha. When you have the bracha of shalom, of peace, and you increase your ultimate essence of who you are, and your connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you realize everything in your life is coming from Hashem, and therefore if you just follow along His lines, then things are going to work out. That's how a person gets to the level of peace of mind and tranquility. And perhaps this is how we will connect this Tehillim, the 18 times that it mentions Hashem's name, how we will connect it with Shemona Esrei. What's the purpose of Shemona Esrei? Why did our sages enact a Shemona Esrei, when we know from the beginning that people used to daven whatever was on their hearts, whatever came out of their mouth, however they wanted to connect with Hashem with their words? Because Chazal saw that the Jewish people were under the gullus, under the exile. Their minds were no longer as clear as they once were, and they realized that it was becoming very difficult to communicate in the right way to Hashem. And the purpose of tefillah, the purpose of prayer in and of itself, is to recognize the Ribbono Shel Olam, to be mispalel, to daven for those things that we need, because we realize it's all coming from Hashem. And then lahaydais is to give thanks and honor and gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for everything that He has done. So they wrote the Shemona Esrei. And the Shemona Esrei is the formula that Chazal coined, that will go through all of the generations. The same Shemona Esrei that we are saying, so they said over there at the times of Rabbi Akiva. The same Shemona Esrei that we are saying is what the Vilna Gaon and his wife said. The same Shemona Esrei that we are saying is what the Jews were saying while they were standing in Bergen-Belsen. They were saying maybe the last Shemona Esrei of their life. Because in every single generation, the formula that we have to recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to hear the voice of Hashem. Who are we talking to in the Shemona Esrei? We're talking to Hashem. He needs to hear what we have to say. He knows that He's great. He knows that He's almighty. He knows that He's all powerful. Does He need our words to say, Hashem, you are so holy, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you give us wisdom, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you'll rebuild Yerushalayim? Does He need to hear our voice? He doesn't need it. But we need to hear our voice. We need to say over the words. We need to say it again, Shachris, Mincha, and Mariv, every single day of our lives, that the word should begin to penetrate into our hearts, that we should know what it means to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what it means that we have a Rebbeinu Shalom in the world, how He's watching over us and taking care of us and protecting us. And then, as a person goes through that Shemona Esrei so beautifully every single day of their life, so we achieve the ultimate bracha. And that ultimate bracha, like the last blessing of the Shemona Esrei is peace. HaKadosh Baruch Hu grants peace to His nation. How do we get peace? When we are at peace with ourselves, when we are at peace with our relation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when we are at peace with our fellow Jews, because we understand that there's a goal and there's a direction that we are going in, and we try to keep it vivid in our mind's eye all of the days of our life, shifti bebeis Hashem, dwelling in His house of the Lord. Then says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so you deserve to be granted the blessing over there that we say at the very end of the Shemona Esrei, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mevarech es am Yisrael b'shalom. He blesses Klal Yisrael with peace. What's the peace? The peace is when you see HaKadosh Baruch Hu in your life, and you listen to His voice to pull out the koiches, the potential that you have inside of you, and you realize that He's giving you the strength to live and to do the way that He wants us to, and then you live accordingly, trying to achieve what HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ratzon, what His will is. You and the people that are like you, they deserve the greatest bracha of all, and that is the bracha of shalom, the bracha of peace. May we be zeichim Yetz Hashem as the month of Elul is moving along rather quickly, and we are preparing ourselves for the YOMIM, NORAIM, those days of awe, when we are going to stand in front of our HaKadosh Baruch and truly recognize that Hashem Hu Elokim, He is the master of this universe, and everything that He demands of us, not because He is a tyrant, but rather because it's the best thing for us in the world. When we will hear His call, and we will awaken ourselves to listen to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, we will be zeichim Yetz Hashem to the ultimate bracha for a year of Tafshin Pei Aleph, the bracha of Shalom, the bracha of peace for ourselves, for our families, and for all of Klal Yisrael. If there's any questions, I'm here.
Nothing really, just thank you.
Okay, have a great day. I think I owe you a phone call still. I'm sorry.